The best pork ribs in the country. The largest buffet in the world. Whole hog barbecue in Carolina, pepperoni rolls in West Virginia, and Cuban sandwiches in Miami. 4,000 miles of the American open road. A meal to commemorate the life and death of my father, and a flagrantly homosexual man from Southeast Asia wearing a parrot costume and squawking at no one in particular. All that, and so much more. Now let's get out there and also, let's do this shit. Our journey starts with 160 miles of US Route 40 and a stop in Memphis, the home of the blues. They say you can never really understand rock and roll if you don't know the blues, which never made any sense to me. I mean, no one has ever said that you can't possibly understand great movies if you haven't seen workers leaving the factory. You'll never truly appreciate a reverse-seared medium-rare dry-aged ribeye if you haven't had a piece of beef that's been curing in a Pioneer's saddlebag for weeks while traversing the open plains. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, we make our way to Memphis, Tennessee and post up at the barbecue shop in Midtown Memphis, where the Vernon family, now in its second generation, has been serving barbecue since the early 80s, after taking over Brady and Lil's barbecue restaurant. And they have done well, winning many awards, including being voted the best ribs in America, according to the Food Network. We pulled up and ordered a rib platter combo with slaw and beans, and when I asked our server which style of ribs she recommended, she said, and I quote, "I got you," and returned to us with a variety so we could try them all. So to all you waiters and waitresses out there, this is what we call service. I always ask my server for recommendations, and more often than not, the answer I get is somewhere between complete indifference and not giving a fuck. And I'm sorry, but you don't get to not give a fuck about me, but also expect me to hit that 20% button on your tablet. It's one or the other, you zoomer sack of shit. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, ribs. Are these the best ribs in America? Probably not. Are they the best ribs I've ever had? Well, yes and no. Because while I enjoyed the flavor of both the glazed and dry rubs, what was amiss for me was the texture. Some of these ribs were tender and unctuous, but some of the meat came off the bone in rigid shards. I know ribs can be a crapshoot, but these particular racks were more of a problem texturally than anyone wants their ribs to be. They were flossy in that I had large shards of pork sticking out of my teeth. Good, bordering on great, but not the best. Now, in my opinion, the sides at any barbecue spot are the baseline that supports the whole number. And there's nothing I hate more than a barbecue joint that throws half-ass sides onto the stage. Looking at you, whole hog barbecue. But this wasn't an issue at the barbecue shop, as every side sung. The beans had an interesting tang of, I think, cumin. The slaw, I think, had mustard and pickles. Everything in service of the main attraction. And that is what I will remember most about the barbecue shop. The level of attention paid to making things memorable. Because everything from the barbecue glaze to the slaw dressing is given a bit of zing to keep your palate scintillating, which is important in creating contrast between what is otherwise sweet, rich, and fatty. But there's something glaring I've left out. A smoked barbecue elephant in the room, as it were, because you simply can't visit the barbecue shop in Memphis without talking about. Am I Italian? No, not technically. But I am a proud Philadelphian, so I've known quite a few in my day. I have an unhealthy relationship with Italian food, and this was an experience. Barbecue spaghetti can be found all over Memphis, and yet here I sample it right where it was invented by former owner Brady Vincent back in the 60s. Smoky, sweet, with some more of that signature tang. Delicious, and yet surreal, bizarre. As close to a Lovecraftian food experience as you can find. The uncanny valley of pasta. Something that kind of resembles something we all know, and yet doesn't in a way that causes feelings of unease and dread. I don't think I'd ever order it again, but only because that real estate in my stomach would be better used elsewhere at the barbecue shop. Good food, great service. A few recommendations I would make to them would be to buy some kind of water filtration for the restaurant because your local tap water tastes like ass. And hire someone to clean up your website because it looks decades out of date and contains typos. Overall, well worth the drive, not the best, but near the top. An 8.1 out of 10. 728 more miles of American road later, and a thought occurs to me. Most anywhere in this country, I can immediately associate a place with a food. New York-style pizza, Chicago hot dogs, Baltimore crab cakes. Hell, the cut of steak we call the ribeye was first popularized by cattle farmers in Nebraska. A place is, at least in some ways, defined by the culinary concoctions they craft. The story they tell about sustenance. But try as I might, I simply can't recall anything noteworthy that has come out of West Virginia. So I did a bit of homework and learned that, apparently, West Virginia is most well known for the pepperoni roll, which was crafted by coal-mining Italian immigrants as a sustainable lunch for workers down in the mines, with the first commercial version sold by Giuseppe Argio in Fairmont, West Virginia in 1927. So we made a pit stop there and visited Dairy Cream Corner, an absolute fever dream of a roadside stand, to sample some of these mountaineer delicacies. The woman at the counter asked us if we wanted them with or without hot dog sauce. Hot dog sauce, and I didn't then, and I still don't know what that even means. Now, you may look at these and say, well, that's just a white trash stromboli. Yep, you'd be right. That's it. But this meal, this establishment, this place, was completely and totally unhinged. The best way I could describe it is, if you've ever had pangs of regret after finishing a meal, like you've made a horrible mistake and consumed too much of that mistake, imagine feeling that feeling before ever taking your first bite. Imagine looking at a food and immediately realizing you've made a horrible mistake. That is the pepperoni roll. But here's the thing, Dairy Cream Corner didn't do anything wrong. We went there and willfully ordered exactly what they gave us. But for two people on a long road trip, what they gave us was paramount to the last thing we ever wanted or needed. 2 doughy footballs filled with pork grease and cheese, along with 2 frothy milkshakes for good measure. We choked down what we could, enjoyed what was admittedly a damn fine milkshake, and watched as parents and children reveled in a veritable cathedral of sugar, cheese, and fryer oil, and thought that to the kids growing up here, this place must seem like heaven. But like a movie that you have to experience as a kid to enjoy, this just was not up our streets. So I'm giving the Dairy Cream Corner the epitome of it is what it is, a 5.3 out of 10. It's been said, possibly by someone who didn't have GPS on their smartphone, that you can never really return home. But after 20 years gone, 266 miles of Route 68 and the Pennsylvania Turnpike bring me back to the little slice of paradise I spent my formative years in, Strasburg, Pennsylvania. I've seen some truly incredible sights in my time here on Earth. I've stood at the foot of a Hawaiian waterfall and gazed up at the Technicolor pride flag wafting from its mists. I've seen glaciers bob past in impossibly blue Alaskan waters. I saw my high school crush drink one too many Bartles and James and show us all her tits. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to the resplendent splendor of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. The clopping of hooves against asphalt, fields that stretch endlessly under a perfectly orange sunset. And I prove that man without GPS wrong, for I am home. And upon returning home, my mind immediately drifts to a date with an old friend. I know she doesn't look like much, and I'm probably blinded by nostalgia, but Pizza City was the pizza joint I cut my teeth on, proverbially speaking, making the best damn pizza a kid could ever grow up eating. The owner, Sammy, a fresh-off-the-boat Italian immigrant, always ready with a smile and a slice for a kid that was down a few bucks. And upon my return, I was greeted by the bittersweet. A photo collage on the wall dedicated to old Sammy, who had apparently passed on a few years back, but the knowledge that his son had taken over the family business. But bittersweet soon turned to sweet, as me and the missus waited for our pie and the universe gifted me one of those perfect moments. 2 middle-aged women hagged in and stepped up to the counter to order, and I got to overhear this exchange.
I want a Philly cheesesteak.
What's that?
I don't know, that's what the guy said to order.
That doesn't help me.
I'm from Baltimore.
Good for you.
It was honestly the most perfect representation of being a Pennsylvania asshole, and specifically about cheesesteaks, something we take seriously. My wife, who is also from Baltimore by the way, said that after hearing that exchange, she kind of understands why I am the way I am. And in better news, she confirmed that my opinion of the pizza wasn't just blind by nostalgia, as it was, in her words, the platonic ideal of corner shop pizza greatness. A crisp, well-seasoned crust with a tangy oregano-laced sauce and the perfect amount of scorched cheese, proving you can go home again for an 8.9 out of 10. A few twists and turns down those stunningly beautiful Lancaster country roads, and we find ourselves in the town of East Earl and in the parking lot of Shady Maple, the largest of what you may call a buffet, but what I grew up calling a smorgasbord. There are or were a bunch of these all over: Miller's, Willow Valley, Hershey Farms, and to be honest, we never went to Shady Maple growing up. But the meal would be one of 2 pilgrimages on this trip in honor of my father, who passed away earlier this year. The missus and I stroll in and immediately cause the average age of customers there to plummet from 80 to 75, and are seated at table number 69, which makes us both laugh. We proceed to a buffet area that is madness incarnate. If your only frame of reference for buffets are places like the Golden Corral, then Shady Maple is like if Golden Corral suddenly decided to start caring about the quality of food, and also multiply the amount of items they offer by about 100. There's a station for steaks, a station for brisket, a station for burgers fresh off the grill, pot roast, fried pork chops, fried chicken, chicken wings, roast chicken, smoked chicken, barbecue chicken, Amish delicacies you've never heard of like ham balls and pork and sauerkraut, and all of it, not bad. As much as it pains me to admit this, the restaurant from my homeland that has garnered more fame and acclaim here on YouTube than any other can best be described as not bad. And that makes sense if you think about it. The place is designed to be an experience for people whose time in their mortal coil is running out. So it makes sense for things to be a little under-seasoned, lest they push those people over that edge. The food is just as I already described, like Golden Corral, only pretty good. The star of this insane show was a cherry cobbler and a cup of coffee that was insanely good, and the perfect way to cap off this meal in the insane asylum that is Shady Maple Smorgasbord. If you've got to have this experience in Lancaster County, then prepare for it to be just that, an experience. More impressive as a forest than the trees, and a 7.1 out of 10. When you're a kid, everything that's not on your doorstep feels a world away. That car trip in a wood-paneled station wagon with uncomfortable seats that seems to take an eternity, but was actually just 90 minutes down I-83, which is where we find ourselves for the second meal in honor of my father, with some close family at Mama Roma in Odenton, Maryland. Despite my unhealthy love for the city of brotherly love, it turns out my family is mostly from the Baltimore area. But no matter where my father was, he had an uncanny nose for some damn good Italian. So we swing through and ordered a greatest hits in his honor. The penne vodka, rich, creamy, and garlicky enough to keep you up at night, but in a way that's more than worth it. The fettuccine bolognese, house-made, hearty, and earthy, and made with real lamb. And just for the old man, a couple cheese slices to share. I even got to chat with the owner and let her know just how much this place meant to him, and in turn, how much that meant to me. This trip would see us trek through most of the deep south, the eastern seaboard, and even international waters. But the food never got any better than right here at Mama Roma in Odenton, Maryland. A 9.4 out of 10. And speaking of reminiscing, the wife and I cross the Chesapeake Bay Bridge and take our journey 145 miles east to where we all began, kicking around Rehoboth Beach where we first met all those years ago, continuing south to Ocean City, Maryland to take in a few rounds of mini golf and reacquaint ourselves with the Hoagie. Primo Hoagies, which were named the best sandwich shop in America by USA Today, is a chain with 120 locations, mostly in the Northeast but slowly creeping south. Now, what separates Primo Hoagies from places like Subway or even Jersey Mike's is their adherence to using boutique Italian ingredients that you won't find elsewhere, such as their sharp provolone and genuinely spicy cold cuts, as well as their commitment to ram as many ingredients as their rolls will allow. They also proudly serve sandwiches featuring fried chicken cutlets, a proud staple of any self-respecting Italian deli, and no, they aren't chicken tenders. We got the Turkey Diablo and were immediately reminded just how long it had been since we had a sandwich with that much flavor. Don't get me wrong, Primo's isn't the 100% genuine article compared to a mom and pop deli, But if New Jersey Michael's is as good a hoagie as you've had, Primo's is a considerable step up from them. And I'm giving Primo's Hoagies an 8.1 out of 10. The term barbecue means many things in many places, from Texas to Korea. It can mean smoking an otherwise tough slab of beef until it can fall apart with just a look, or giving a bite-sized morsel a kiss on the grill. As we head south, I even develop a theory that Pennsylvania has a barbecue culture which revolves around smoked chicken, though they don't use the term barbecue. But in Carolina, the hog is king. So as we journey south, we make our way to Sam Jones Barbecue in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's not one of those tin shacks that people line up at 8 a.m. for, but we don't have time for that anyway. But what we do have time for is a pretty damn good tray. I've said this already and will insist upon it until I die, that if a barbecue joint doesn't pay attention to their sides, then they aren't worth your attention. And at Sam Jones, they don't miss a beat. The mac and cheese, which I am wholly unreasonable about, is some of the best Southern-style mac I've encountered. The slaw, bright and peppery, and while not as good as the barbecue shop, still in the top tier. We went with a smoked chicken quarter and pulled pork, and it was a certified event. You see, smoking meat brings out its natural sweet notes, and I personally hate it when people douse that in anything sugary. So Carolina's vinegar-based barbecue is right up my street. But I'm sad to report that our meal ended with a low note, as the banana pudding really wasn't great. See, to me, a good banana pudding is made with bananas, wafers, and, most importantly, vanilla pudding. This was made with banana pudding, which carried with it the atomic bomb that is artificial banana flavoring. I don't know, let me know if I have any of that wrong, but in my opinion, that taints the whole thing. But overall, I was still more than impressed with finally getting to try Carolina barbecue in Carolina, and I'm giving Sam Jones an 8.3. 800 or so miles down the eastern seaboard, which I just realized is a term that I'm not really sure what it means or if that's even correct, and we enter into the mouth of madness. Florida. The state venerated for being a bottomless mouth of drugs, tourism, drugs, excess, drugs, geriatrics, and garden variety lunacy. It's also one of the few states I've spent exactly 0 time in because I'm not even remotely swayed by Disney nor degeneracy. We got settled into our digs in Orlando and ventured out to see what Florida grub is all about. Okay, now hear me out because at least at the time I thought our logic was sound. We'd been traveling all day and didn't want anything heavy. And with our proximity to the ocean, the conclusion we arrived at was to seek out a poke bowl. Fresh fish, rice, veggies, some sort of Asian-inspired sauce, and our search led us to Island Fin Poke Company, the highest-rated poke spot in all of Orlando according to Google, where we were served a bowl of garbage. You see, what hadn't occurred to me is that, although we're a stone's throw away from ocean waters, the most common fish in poke is tuna and salmon. And while you can technically find tuna once you get a good distance offshore, salmon, not so much. So a business that produces poke bowls probably wouldn't use different suppliers, and you could definitely taste that here. You see, a good poke spot is where they want you to taste the fish. Hell, they're proud of it. At Island Fin, it's all window dressing. Unpleasant fish dressed to the nines with dressing and sauce to mask the charade. Some post-meal investigation revealed that they're under new ownership and saw a noticeable drop in quality. Which, for the sake of the people of Orlando, I hope that's true, because if not, the Island Fin Poke Company, the highest-rated poke joint in Orlando, is an abysmal 4.8 out of 10. We hop on the A1A for a couple hundred miles and enjoy a beautiful drive, passing by million-dollar homes located in areas that are too dangerous for any insurance company to insure. So the federal government has to step in and do it for them. Did you know that? Did you know that your tax dollars go to insure the homes of billionaires who simply have to have vacation homes in the path of hurricanes? That we all pay for them to be rebuilt every few years? But if you think that sounds totally insane, then strap in, brother, and welcome to South Beach, Miami. Like an episode of the Jersey Shore on mescaline, we arrive at our hotel and immediately feel like Marcus Brody asking if anyone speaks ancient Greek. We venture out for a walk and find a seemingly endless string of restaurants, each adorned with a young lady of the night trying their best to titty bop around and coax passers-by inside. It's happy hour, at all of them, all of the time, which means it's never happy hour. It just is. I see those roped in being served troughs of utter garbage. Everyone is eating, and yet no one is smiling. And I immediately recognize that the food here is merely an afterthought, that the fishbowl Technicolor drinks are the reason for the season. As such, I make it a point to visit the most insane establishment I can find, so we make our way over to Daiquiri Dogs. Daiquiri Dogs is at least a language I speak, a wall of frozen alcoholic beverage dispensers and one choice on the menu. But unlike its New Orleans counterpart, which does pizza, here it's some of the most monstrous hot dog abominations you can imagine. We get one Chicago dog and something called a slaw dog, which says it comes topped with chili and coleslaw, but really they just threw a handful of cabbage at it. I think the man working the counter was surprised by my order, because, well, for starters, they're big as shit, but also because we were stone sober and hadn't ordered a cocktail, and we soon realized that they were meant to be paired together, because this is something that needs to be enjoyed while absolutely hammered. But this was just awful. Not offensively, just offensively tasted of nothing. I would be willing to bet the chili came from a can, and that the canning plant ran out of any seasoning that day. The Chicago dog was a little better, but the pickles and mustard were doing much of the heavy lifting. It was an experience. One which I would never have again, one which I wish I hadn't, but an experience. Oh, and the whole affair costs $35, so there's also that. Daiquiri Dogs, I don't know who you're making happy, but I'm giving you a 2.3 out of 10. Go somewhere. Find some place you're unfamiliar with, and eat the food it's known for. That is the immortal teaching of Anthony Bourdain. So for my first time venturing to the bed of madness that is Miami, I couldn't leave without seeking out a food that has long confused me. The Cuban. An assortment of pork that would make a pig farmer blush, pressed within Cuban bread along with melted cheese, pickles, and mustard. I could never figure out why it's so often referred to as being amongst sandwich royalty, because it looks something you'd find at Quiznos or Firehouse Subs. So I went somewhere in Miami, the land of its birth, and procured one, and also forgot to make a note of where exactly that was. It was hot, it was porky, it was kinda disappointing. The Swiss cheese not pungent enough to cut through the overwhelming fragrance of mustard and pickles. And Cuban bread, I'm sorry, just isn't very good. It always tastes like an under-seasoned dough, its crumb structure is too open so parts of it get chewy, and it's well short of its counterparts from France and Italy. And that's not European bias either, there are plenty of good breads from around Latin America. I just don't think Cuba is one of them. The Cuban sandwich, or as I will now refer to it, the most overpriced ham and Swiss, a disappointing 4.7 out of 10. Though I should add the place we got it from had some damn good empanadas. Now for those of you paying attention, it might dawn on you that these scores are declining, and that decline coincides neatly with our journey down the east coast of America. But if you think Miami is the bottom of that chasm, then strap yourself in because we're about to board the cruise ship. Maybe you've heard about or even seen world star hip-hop videos of all manners of human garbage acting a fool on a cruise ship. And I'm here to tell you, it's true. All of it. Well, not all of it. You see, if you talk to people aboard cruise ships, you'll find plenty of decent people making the most out of their spare time and income, while also running into the sort of ghetto trash who thinks Olive Garden's never-ending pasta bowl is the peak of gastronomy Italia. People are people, good and bad. But one thing that became glaringly obvious on this particular cruise was that the quality of people was weighted heavily toward the bad end. It was a 3-day cruise leaving the port of Miami for the Bahamas on Memorial Day weekend. So when talking to my fellow travelers, I would ask them where they were from, and they mostly responded, Florida. Oh God. Oh dear God, are we ever in for it? A boat full of 4,000 mostly Floridians with unlimited drink packages on Memorial Day weekend will be lucky if an international governing body doesn't torpedo the ship as an act of mercy for humanity. I mostly spend my time people watching and soon feel like Roy Batty at the end of Blade Runner. I've seen children in an ornately decorated dining room throwing food at the wall while their parents pretend they don't exist. I've seen a 400-pound man in a Speedo surrounded by enough empty Coors Light bottles to fell an ox. I've seen a flagrantly homosexual man from Southeast Asia wearing a parrot costume encouraging people to wash their hands by shouting, "Rah! Rah! Washy washy!" I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. But getting back to the food, I think on this, my third ever cruise, I finally cracked the code. See, a cruise ship is trying to serve literally thousands of people. They're churning out hundreds of different dishes to meet all tastes. And just as with the world's largest buffet, many of those tastes are geriatric. Many of those dishes are unhealthy as all hell, so it isn't in their best interest to load up those Jurassic sailors with sodium, because it isn't in their best interest to put them in the ground before they can reach platinum status. So when eating on a cruise ship, it's best to assume that everything needs salt. Give everything you eat a healthy dose of sodium chloride and pepper for good measure, and it almost resembles food. I went to the Windjammer buffet for breakfast, fixed myself a plate, and struggled to find a place to sit among the throngs of unholy, just barely sentient humanity. I spotted an empty table for 6, but as soon as I sat down, I was immediately accosted by an Italian woman, who thought it inhumane that I dared to sit at a table where her purse was sitting. Mind you, it was her husband, and her son at a table for 6. I explained that there was nowhere to sit and I just wanted to eat quickly and leave, but she continued to be unreasonably indignant that I shared the same space as her family. To which I explained that either she is going to find somebody to make me leave, or she can try and do it herself. To which she replied, "You are disgusting." And that about sums up this cruise ship in a nutshell. Thousands of people given unlimited access to food, shelter, and booze, but believe that all of this is just for them. People who crowd around an elevator and when one arrives, try to get on before letting others off. And just where is that torpedo? Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been to a Buc-ee's? Have you ever taken part in armed combat? They're not as dissimilar as you might imagine. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So starts A Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens' iconic 1859 novel. And I can think of no better words to describe our combined experiences visiting 2 Buc-ee's in 2 cities on 2 different days, which I will lump together for your amusement. First, we went to Buc-ee's in Daytona Beach, Florida, on Memorial Day, which is as close to the opening scene from Saving Private Ryan as anything outside a battlefield can be. In fact, just saying I went to Buc-ee's in Daytona Beach on Memorial Day elicits a response from people's faces like I told them I just ran over a dog. Being in the Buc-ee's in Daytona Beach on Memorial Day is like being in a dream, in that you leave with only fragments of what just transpired. We grabbed a couple sandwiches, though I'm not exactly sure why we chose them. I think I saw a man kneeling in the corner weeping, though that may not have been real. But one thing I did leave with was the Buc-ee's secret, the cheat code behind their success. And it all resides within just 2 principles: sugar and bathrooms. Everything at Buc-ee's is sweet, from the obviously sweet confections in the bakery, the barbecue, the snacks, and even the sandwiches. I got a Buc-ee's turkey and ham club melt and was shocked at how decadently sweet a club sandwich could be. It seems impossible to make it out of Buc-ee's without consuming twice your daily recommended sugar intake, unless you're eating a pair of those overalls. Now, it's no secret that Buc-ee's is famous for the efficiency and cleanliness of their bathrooms. But stop and think about why that is. The rest of the store is utter chaos. Children screaming, parents crying, employees shouting something about an overrated brisket. Then you step into the bathroom and the world starts to make sense again. People are pissing and shitting and following order. For one brief moment, the world seems like it's going to be okay. Satan himself couldn't hatch a scheme as clever as selling order and chaos under one roof. It is a masterstroke of evil marketing genius. A day later, we again see that demon beaver's face appearing over the horizon, and stop in Leeds, Alabama on a Wednesday afternoon. It was quiet, empty, serene. The wife and I marveled at being inside a Buc-ee's where we could actually stop and look around. Shop, if you will. It felt like when you were a kid and you wandered somewhere you shouldn't be. We grabbed some snacks, including something called a beaver tail, which was quite enjoyable. But one thing that always amazes me about Buc-ee's is this. Why is their coffee so ass? Why is it light years worse than just about all of their competitors on the open road? Questions for another time, you certifiably insane bastion of American absurdism. But that's going to do it for another adventure on the open road. If I went to any city and didn't go to your favorite place, let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you when I see you.